Hi there, my name is Peter Nijenhuis and I'm your host in this video. So in this video, I'm going to talk about Scrum versus Kanban versus Scrumban. So during my professional career, I've worked with multiple agile frameworks and I saw organizations picking an agile framework, but for the wrong reasons. I saw organizations, hey, we have to go for Scrum. All the teams need to work with Scrum because everybody else is doing it. So must be right. And I saw organizations going for Kanban so that the teams would have less ceremonies. Now, if this is your approach in picking an agile framework, well, from my professional opinion, it's the wrong approach. So when picking an agile framework, you have to look at the maturity of the team, the maturity of the organization, but you also have to look at the context of the team and the context of the organization. Do not immediately go for the mainstream thing and go for Scrum or whatsoever, because maybe you're working in a different context, in a different situation, and you have a different maturity. So when you're watching this video on YouTube or Vimeo or any other social media platform, it's very good to know that this video is part of an online course that I'm giving. And this course will be, of course, about Scrum versus Kanban versus Scrumban. But it will be a more in-depth course, right? So I will be talking about what kind of roles do you have within Scrum, what kind of artifacts do you have within Scrum, what kind of ceremonies do you have within Scrum, and this also applies for Kanban. What kind of roles, ceremonies, artifacts do you have with Kanban? What kind of roles, ceremonies, and artifacts do you have when it comes to Scrumban? But more importantly, what are the pros and the cons of each framework? So if you're interested in this course, you can find the link below in the description. Like I said, this video will be more of I'm going to explain things in a nutshell, very briefly, and if you want to know more, follow the course. That will be more in depth, right? So before we're going to start with the frameworks, Scrum, Kanban, and Scrumban, those are the three most used, most common frameworks. But you have more frameworks out there, more agile frameworks out there. You have XP, which stands for Extreme Programming. You have FDD, which stands for Feature Driven Development. You have DSDM, which stands for Dynamic Systems Development Method. And some folks would even consider Lean to be an agile framework. Now, I disagree with that one, because Lean was created, was invented, whatever you want to call it, in the early 20th century. So it started with Henry Ford with his car manufacturing thing, became quite popular with his manufacturing strategy. Then it went to Japan, there Toyota picked it up. So this was already there way before the Agile Manifesto was created. So the Agile Manifesto, that was created around 2001, and Scrum was invented in 1994 or so. So Lean was already there way before Agile and even Scrum. So therefore, in my professional opinion, Lean isn't an Agile framework. However, they do have a lot of overlap with each other. It's all about providing value to your customers, to your users, to your stakeholders, doing it on an iterative basis, gather feedback, and based on that feedback, adjust, improve, and so on and so on. Enough about that. So let's dive deeper into Scrum. So I'm going to briefly explain what Scrum is. Scrum provides a very clear structure. You have a couple of roles within Scrum, you have a couple of ceremonies within Scrum, and you have a couple of artifacts within Scrum. These roles, these ceremonies, these artifacts, they provide structure. It makes it more tangible for the people who are working with Scrum. So for starters, you have the product owner. The product owner is a representative of the business, makes an inventory of all the work that needs to be done and prioritizes this work. Then you have the development team, and the development team takes a subset of the work and, and is going to commit to make sure that that work will be achieved within the sprint. Now the sprint is a time box of, let's say, 2 weeks. That's the most common thing, but can also be 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or even less. So the development team takes a subset, is going to work on that, and at the end of the sprint, they're going to present it to their stakeholders, customers and users, gather feedback and improve on that. And this process is going to be repeated. Product owner, development team, and then you have the Scrum Master. So the Scrum Master is more of a servant leader. A coach towards the product owner, so the product owner can become better at their jobs, but also a servant leader and a coach towards the development team, so the development team can grow towards a high-performing team. The Scrum Master is also a servant leader and a coach towards the surroundings. So especially when you're new with an agile way of working, when you're new with Scrum, the Scrum Master is the person to go to when you have questions, and Scrum Master is the person to coach the surroundings in this new way of working. So that said, in my opinion, the Scrum Master is the cornerstone of an agile transformation. Enough about Scrum. Kanban. Kanban is quite different compared to Scrum. Kanban doesn't have its own roles, it doesn't have its own ceremonies, doesn't have its own artifacts. Well, that's not entirely true, but for the roles and the ceremonies, it doesn't have its own roles. Kanban is more about using what's already there, using the already existing processes, using the already existing workflows, using the already existing roles within an organization, and start from there. Kanban is a framework which is about continuous improvement. So you have this Kanban board, a physical board or a digital board with all the work that needs to be done, and you're going to work with a WIP limit, which stands for work in progress. So you have a limit on the things that you can work on. Let's say the WIP limit is 5. That does mean that you're not allowed to work on the 6th or the 7th thing. No, you first have to finish one task before starting a new task. Kanban is also about creating flow. And with flow, you can achieve and provide the value to the customers, to the stakeholders, and to the users. Also, this is being done in an iterative way, so you can gather the feedback from the customers, from the stakeholders, from the users, and improve from there. Scrumban. Now, Scrumban is a mixture of those two, a mixture of Scrum and Kanban. It brings the best of both worlds together. So when working with Scrumban, you're working with the same roles as Scrum. You have the product owner, you have the development team, and you have the Scrum Master. And you're using a couple of the ceremonies of Scrum, but not all of them. And you're not working with sprints / time boxes. So instead you're working like Kanban with the work in progress limit, so the WIP limit. And from there you're going to create flow, and then you're going to provide value to your customers, to your stakeholders, to your users. So like I said in the beginning, this is very briefly what Scrum is, what Kanban is, what Scrumban is. If you want to know more, if you want to learn more about these frameworks, then follow the link and below in the description. It will be more in depth. What is Scrum? What is Kanban? What is Scrumban? And that brings us to which framework do you need to pick for which environment? So like I said before, Scrum that provides a very clear structure of the roles, because of the ceremonies, because of the artifacts. Therefore, Scrum is a very good framework for beginning teams, for organizations which are quite new to the agile way of working, which are quite new to Scrum. However, Scrum is very good for a software development environment. So if you're new to agile way of working, but you're not working in a software development environment, then please do not go for Scrum. Choose another one, another framework. So Scrum is very good for the software development environment, but not so good for other environments, because Scrum is a framework which is about planning the work up front. And for software development, especially for development, and I'm not talking about operations, but for software development, you can plan the work up front. I'm not going to say that it's easy. It's quite challenging in planning the work up front, but it's more easy to plan your work up front in a software development environment instead of operations, because within operations you have a lot of unplanned work like incidents, and you can't plan an incident, right? You don't know when an incident is going to happen, so therefore you can't plan it. So once again, Scrum is very good for beginning teams in a software development environment. Kanban is more suitable for other types of work. Let's say you're working in non-IT. Let's say you're working healthcare or education or in the business side of the organization instead of the IT side of the organization, then Kanban could be a better fit, because it's building on the existing roles, the existing processes, the existing workflows, and it's also more suitable if you have a lot of ad hoc, unplanned work. So that's Kanban, and for what kind of environment you're working in. Scrumban, that's more suitable for IT teams, especially for teams who are working within IT, who are doing software development, but also operations. So let's say you have adopted DevOps. And if you don't know what DevOps is, that will be covered in a different course. But in a nutshell, DevOps is more than just building the software. It's also about operating and maintaining the software. So when a team has embraced or adopted DevOps, it means it's going to build the new feature, it's going to test the new feature, it's going to deploy the new feature, and it's also going to maintain the new feature. If that's the case, then most likely you will also have, I don't know if it's a lot, but you have unplanned work. You will have incidents. So you as a team are responsible for solving that incident. So therefore you have unplanned work. Therefore Scrumban could be a better fit. That's for the situation that you have to look for. What kind of framework am I going for? What kind of situation am I working in? What is the context? That kind of things, and that should determine what kind of agile framework you're going for. Yeah, well, that's it, folks. Very briefly, what is Scrum? What is Kanban? What is Scrumban? Very briefly, what is the kind of situation you're working in and what kind of agile framework you should pick. Like I said before, if you want to know more, if you want to know more in depth what Scrum is and the other frameworks, follow the link below in the description, and hopefully I will see you there. Okay, ciao, ciao. See you next time.